Happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. This is the scariest rugby league image I could find. But with October 31st being today, it means only one thing. Oh, well, it could mean many things depending on what date you actually watch this video. But tomorrow is November 1. Every single contracted player who doesn't have one for 2026 is a free agent. This is the closest thing that we can get to a transfer window to an NBA or an NFL free agency period for the next few weeks and about until the end of the year, I would say normally. This is where clubs can make the roster decisions that they desire. There are a bunch of players. Some have rumored to have extended already, yet it isn't confirmed. There are some who are going to be testing their value. There's a lot of players who it doesn't look like are going to get a contract with their current teams. This is where premierships can be won. This is where we see the big transitions because let's be honest, in the NRL, the current system, I'd say about 20 of the 30 players on each roster. If a club really wanted them, they'd make a deal to go at any time. But when we're talking about your Luai to the Tigers, your Stephen Crichton to the Bulldogs, your Brennan Smith to the Roosters, the biggest transfers for the superstar players, they happen at this period when clubs are still trying to keep them, but other clubs are just chucking big bicky at them. So we shall see what happens over the next few months. There are a lot of players that we all know that are off contract as of tomorrow when I'm recording this video, but there are also a bunch of players who can legally sign to another club tomorrow and could literally break open the competition as we know it. Well, except for Penrith winning. Now, we all know that especially the last couple of years have proven that a halfback is the most important position on the rugby league field. And looking at the big dog halfbacks, there's really one name that stands out, and that is Ben Hunt. He finally officially got his release. So when we talk about most of these players, we are talking about 2026. As always, clubs can do some roster maneuvering. They can make a player swap. But Ben Hunt is available to talk right now. And I think Ben Hunt, he knows he's only got a small amount of time left. He's one of these older halfbacks. There are plenty of them getting around, and they're all honestly on the teams that are contending for a premiership outside of Nathan Cleary. And I also think it doesn't make sense for a club that's entering a rebuild to try and sign Ben Hunt for massive money unless they've got a lot of money in their salary cap. Now, we did already spend a lot of time talking about Ben Hunt. For those who didn't watch my video, well, I'm not even going to tell you because you should go and watch it. Now, the biggest, I would say, valuable, the biggest money, the biggest star that is off contract is Sam Walker. And while it would be really fun to speculate, I do think he's staying at the Sydney Roosters. That ACL injury for a guy like Sam Walker, considering how young he is, I mean, looking back to Nathan Cleary at 21-22, Sam Walker is honestly better than Nathan Cleary was, and he is literally probably the best halfback of all time already. But it's the Sydney Roosters. When you're getting offered over $1 million by the Sydney Roosters, who are the greatest negotiators of all time, you could just imagine what other clubs are going to be throwing at them. But Sam Walker, at one of the biggest, most powerful clubs in the NRL, could stay the man. I don't think he's going to be leaving. The only club I could really see him going to is probably the Brisbane Broncos, just because it's still a great position to play with Reece Walsh. Obviously, the Ezra Mam situation is changing literally hour by hour, and I don't want to speculate too much on that because it does seem pretty etched. But I also don't think the Brisbane Broncos have that much money in their salary cap, and for all the jokes that we've made about the Roosters, they definitely have some cash over what they've lost over this last season or two. Now, outside of Ben Hunt, who honestly hasn't had much final success since he left the Brisbane Broncos, and he's actually had more final success than Sam Walker, is Braden Trindall. Out of all the halves that are off contract, Braden Trindall has the finals performance. You still got a very small sample size of Trindall. He's very much a halfback though, so I think he's a guy in this new salary cap that could get upwards of 800 to 900k, and if you're a team looking for a halfback, he's probably your best bet. And that's a really interesting situation with the Sharks. I don't think they should let Nico Hines go, because despite his struggles with an injured back last year and an injured calf, I think it was, he's still without a doubt the Sharks' best player. He's one of the best players in the comp on his day. But maybe the Sharks don't see Trindall and Hines as a halves combination long term. They've got Atkinson coming through. That's still the whole situation with Kennedy though, so without spending too much time on the Sharks, I think Trindall is a realistic possibility for a lot of teams. Jackson Hastings, there's obviously been some issues with him throughout his career, because now the Newcastle Knights, just like every other club before, have wanted to try and move with Hastings on, but he is a great game manager, and if you get the best out of him, well, he's never going to be on your DCE, Nathan Cleary, Jerome Hughes level of halfback. He's still going to do a job for you. I do think the best value option is Lockie Ilias. Lockie Ilias has taken the South Sydney Rabbitohs to a prelim final. South got even worse after Jason Demetrio dropped Lockie Ilias, and he is coming off a long-term injury, but he's been out of the spotlight. I think he could do a great job, even if you're a club like Manly or the Broncos, and let Ilias sit behind one of these top-line halfbacks where he's not the main guy for about a year or two, and then he becomes a starting halfback. I think there's a lot to be said that this kid, yes, I know it went horribly in the end, but he was still leading a team around and got the best of the guys like Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell. So I think Lockie Ilias is the best value option there. So if you can't get Hunt, you can't get Walker, I'd be going him, especially more long-term. You're probably looking at him more than Ben Hunt. So it is quite a deep halfback class. The same can't be said for 5'8". A lot of the top dog 5'8" are signed up for a very long time. It's really just Kieran Foran, Tamale Martin, and Adam Dewey who are off contract. Cody Walker is as well, but I can't see Cody going anywhere. I'm not even sure what you'd have to pay to get Cody away from South Sydney. And to be honest, would Cody Walker even leave South Sydney, even if a club did offer him near $1 million considering his age? He's one of South Sydney's favourite sons. I could see Adam Dewey leaving. I think he'd be a great option for like a Penrith Panthers for a good system to have there. Add some 5'8" depth. If the Storm maybe lose Jonah Pezzett, you could bring Adam Dewey in. Maybe play a bit of centre, play 5'8". He's big enough. Maybe you could have him as like a hybrid on the bench. I can't see Kieran Foran getting a gig at many other places unless they just want a veteran half to come in. I can't see a powerhouse picking him up. I could see the Titans keeping him and having him develop their young guns. I could see the Dolphins maybe getting Foran and helping Katoa lean on him, play Foran at 6 and have Katoa at halfback. I mean, Josh Schuster is there, but we'll see what happens with Wayne, but I don't think he can be anything. If I'm taking a punt, the 5'8" I'm going for isn't even a 5 at the moment. He's actually centre, and that is Katoni Staggs. I think Katoni would be a great running 5'8". He'd have to work on his ball playing a lot, but I think he's looking for a new challenge. I'm not sure if the Brisbane Broncos are going to be able to keep him with all their talks about planning for the future beyond Reynolds. Plus, they've still got a bunch of guys to sign that I'm going to be talking about on the rest of this video. But if you're looking at strike centers, he's obviously the big dog. There's a bunch of good wingers, and you could argue that wingers are more important in the modern game. And with how valuable wingers have become, and props, and really every other position, I'd hate to say it, but centers, you're probably not looking to pay big bucks for. With respect to the centers I'm about to drop here, you know, the Penrith have won how many comps in a row, and their best center pairing was all the way back in the first comp when they had Critter and Burton. Since then, they've gotten by with battlers, respectfully, to like guys like Paul Alamotti. Centers are at the mercy of a good system. Unless you can get a Herbie or a Critter, there's really no point paying them anywhere close to, you know, your 700-800K mark. Katoni is one of those guys who could get that. Bronson Xerri is the other big strike center on this list. Unless you really are needing them, I don't think they're worth the money you're going to get for them, unfortunately. Obviously, the market will dictate that, but I could see Katoni going to a number of clubs. I would think the clubs trying to rebuild will put more money and more focus towards their spine, but who knows? If I'm Katoni, I'm still trying to get paid. I know Brisbane is probably a long shot. I would be trying to get to the Sydney Roosters. Even if I'm Bronson Xerri, maybe obviously you want to stay at the Bulldogs, especially for a guy like Xerri who they took a punt on him. But if you get into a good system where you're going to get the ball in good positions, one-on-one, Katoni and Xerri, they would both cook at the Sydney Roosters. A club like that is where I see them landing. Now, every club could use a winger. Wingers are weird because I think guys like Brian Toto and Zach Lomax are legit worth north than $1 million, but they're great set starters. And your Josh Addo-Carrs at this point, your Xavier Savages aren't doing that. Your Ronaldo Mulatalo is. I can't see them leaving. So unless you're Selwyn Cobo, I think if you get a big wicket, you're going somewhere to be the fullback. And there are a few clubs, I guess, that could get a guy like Selwyn Cobo. But again, to take a punt on a fullback when you've got so many gun fullbacks already established could be a risk. But when you got like Selwyn Cobo, I think a club could pay $1 million just for him on potential. But I do think the modern game has really sort of turned. We've obviously seen the success from the big three clubs over the last 10 years or so, win with pretty much just a dominant spine. but what they've also got in common is absolutely gun forward packs. And I think if you're a middle forward, you're looking at how much money you can get, and it's actually insane. And they're so underappreciated by the modern fans that I guess it makes sense, and they deserve to be the second highest paid position behind halfbacks. Front rowers get paid more than fullbacks, and look how crazy the fullback market is. But the Roosters claimed 3 premierships in the last decade, one of the best front rowers we've ever seen with JWH, and Penrith have just won 4 in a row with the greatest front row pairing probably of all time. And to be honest, looking at the list, clubs know this. They've done a really good job of locking down the big names. Obviously, Fisher Harris was a crazy story that came out of nowhere with him going to the Warriors. Payne Haas does have a mutual option, so I guess technically he could break that and negotiate, but he's not on this list. Like I said, we're not here to speculate. There are some guns on him, though, I've got to admit. Trent Leoro, who just nearly made his Queensland debut and was a gun lock this season, so underrated. His teammate, Josh King, too, if you go back to that grand final, he was putting Melbourne on his back. He was going toe-to-toe with Fish and Leota. Corey Jansen's been an absolute battler for the Brisbane Broncos. Josh Papali'i, maybe he's probably not looking for another contract. He might be retiring or going to the Super League to finish off his career. Oregon Kaufusi, I'm not sure if the Sharks can keep him. Tom Hazelton is a really good get, I think, for a lot of clubs. And then also you chuck in the locks. Adam Elliott's a gun. Jack DeBellon's a gun. Dylan Walker's a great utility/lock. Cameron McInnes is actually off contract as well. And Tuhu Harris is a really interesting one because 12 months ago, he was a top 3 lock in the game. We were saying he might be starting lock for Australia and playing Origin if he was able to, because he was such a key part of the Warriors' run in 2023. And a lot of people wouldn't push back if you said that Tuhu Harris deserves nearly $1 million a year contract. But unfortunately, a really bad year with injuries. He's very old at this point in terms of rugby league. Maybe he's nowhere near worth that right now. Plus, it would suck to see him leave the Warriors. He's been one of the few signings they've made respectfully that has turned into a club legend. Ethan Bullimore is another one. He is almost the perfect forward for the modern game, and he had a breakout year. There's a few guys on this list. There's no Tinos. There's no Payne Haases with a big asterisk. AFB has already signed to the Sharks. Fish has obviously gone to the Warriors. Moses Leota's not going anywhere. So all the big names, they're all locked up. But I tell you what, if you got the best out of Tommy Hazelton, he's one of the best try-scoring front rowers in the comp. I don't know why he ended up on the bench, because I remember back to a few games, he completely changed it when he came off. And when the Sharks were going on that mad run early in the year, Tom Hazelton was without a doubt the best forward in that pack. And they've got some gun forwards in that Sharks team. Plus, you add on the fact, can they afford to keep him with AFB going there? I think Tom Hazelton, for a lot of clubs looking for a front rower, and I think a lot of them do need to, especially the ones looking to take that next step, like your Dogs or your Manly, to be a premiership contender. Corey Jansen's the other one I would be trying to get, because a lot of these guys, you know, you're probably looking at 400 to 500k, to be honest, in the front rower market. A guy like Tommy Hazelton, a bench front rower, is going to be getting towards 600 to 700k. That's just the way the front rower market is at the moment. But Corey Jansen, he was a smoky for Queensland literally going into this year. So there's a lot of good names. If you get the best out of Josh King, like we've seen Craig Bellamy do, I think literally probably 15 out of 17 clubs should be trying to get one of these guys that I've just named. I think middle forwards, that could be the most congested and most competitive market we see this offseason, because while to the fan, they're not getting the Dally M points, they're not winning the major individual awards, they're always going to cater towards the boys who are pulling off the highlight plays. You need forwards to go forward, which is why Nathan Cleary has been so good, because he's been playing behind Fisher Harris and Leota. And not to the same extent, but your edge back rowers are a bit the same. There aren't too many off contract. Actually, Felice Garfusi, who I've got down here as an edge back rower, is making that transition to the middle. And then the other two big ones are both Sharks boys, Britt Nakora and Teague Wilton. So looking at this list, especially when we get into the next position, the Cronulla Sharks have a big task hanging on to them. And one of those guys is Blake Brayley, who there's a few dummy halves on this list who could be club defining. We forget about dummy halves because Cameron Smith was without a doubt the best in so long, and now it's Harry Grant. but they're still a key member of your spine, and it was not too long ago where Josh Hodgson took the Canberra Raiders to the grand final thanks to the way he dominated as a dummy half. So you got Blake Brayley there, who, as I've just established, the Cronulla Sharks, I don't know if they can enter the mark with who they've got to keep at the moment. Reece Robson, who's literally the New South Wales dummy half, I think he's going to value. Maybe the Cowboys, they've got a really tight salary cap. I don't think they're going to be making many moves. They're going to cost you probably towards that 8 to 900k mark, one of those two. But the other one is Blake Moser. Blake Moser is the highest touted dummy half coming through since Harry Grant. And we already know about the Brisbane Broncos salary cap situation. I think there's a very good chance that Blake Moser could end up on the move. If I'm the Broncos, while you've got Staggs and Cobbo off contract, who have been great and key parts of that organisation for a number of years, they've poured so much time into developing Blake Moser, I would be chucking massive money to keep him. But that ain't how modern rugby league works. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and if I'm Blake Moser, maybe securing the bag and going somewhere to play in a good system respectfully to the Broncos might be the smartest decision for his career, and could also maybe add a few zeros to his next paycheck. But then finally we have the fullbacks. Now, Gutho's the one we've been speaking about for ages. Fullbacks is a weird one because there are so many gun ones that you would say probably cost north of $1 million because of how good they are. You could probably have all maybe 16 to 17 starting fullbacks in your top 50 to 100 players in the entire comp. How the Eels have treated Gutho is honestly a rugby league disgrace, but we can talk about that another time. It's pretty much confirmed he's going to the Dragons, which kind of sucks. I think Gutho is one of these guys who does deserve a premiership, and I just can't see him getting that at the Dragons with Ben Hunt leaving. But I do think he's a great signing by Flanagan, and I think he's going to be awesome for Tyrell Sloan. The other big fullback on the market is Ryan Pappenhausen. Now, the Melbourne Storm situation is kind of interesting. It seemed the Storm weren't willing to let Pappy go till November 1 to let him test his value, but after a decreased contract offer, it seems Pappy's going there, and with the whole Far Logo situation and Melbourne just being the minor premiers / making the grand final, I'm sure a lot of the players, like we just mentioned, you Josh Kings, Trent Leoras, are due for massive pay upgrades. And when I'm assuming you're already paying a couple $100K for Falongo to be a backup fullback and a bench utility on top of already paying Wishart about the same, maybe you can't afford to carry that many players on that big of a wicket who aren't in your starting 17. But Pappy's still Clive Churchill winner, so as good as Falongo may be right now, he might never reach the heights that Pappy has, which is winning the Clive Churchill, the most prestigious award in rugby league, you could argue. I think there would be a list of clubs ready to chuck $1 million plus at Pappenhausen, which I think the Melbourne Storm just realistically can't afford to keep. He's also had his injury problems, Pappy, and that always comes into it. Will Kennedy is also a big name off contract. There's a lot of uncertainty. Maybe the Sharks are going to move Nico Hines to fullback. Maybe Kennedy falls out. Chance Nickel-Clockstat, I can't see him really moving anywhere. He obviously wanted to go back to New Zealand from the Raiders. He requested that release for family reasons. But ladies and gentlemen, out of all the names on this list, let me know in that comment section down below, who do you want your club to sign? Who do you think is the most valuable player in this free agency period? It's almost time, ladies and gentlemen, for your favourite player to leave your favourite club. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already. Let's try and hit 10k before the start of next season. I've just decided that as I'm speaking, and I'll see yous in the next one.